Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Good evening, Maverick family and new viewers. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. We have a lot going on tonight. RFK Jr. in Washington. Trump will be there as well this weekend. We'll show you a speech with RFK Jr. Where it's a Libertarian convention. And they are going after those Libertarian votes because it is a close race between Trump and Biden, and RFK Jr. coming up the middle from the rear. We'll talk about that. Also, the World Court ordering Israel to end its offensive in Rafah. What does that all mean? Well, we'll let you know. We have all of that. Plus, on the other side of this, we have Dragon joining us live from UQAM University in Montreal, where there is a pro-Palestinian protest happening as we speak. Stay with us.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are Maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, let's go live right now with Dragon at UQAM University. Hello,
Hello,
Dragon.
sir. How are you?
I'm fine. The bigger question is, how are you? Is everything okay there?
I'm doing great, actually. No scuffle, no nothing. A little bit of people behind me doing a little chanting and singing, actually. That's new. They are singing rap. So that's good.
Well, we know that UQAM had applied for an injunction that went to court today. They don't have a decision on this, as I understand it. But what they were looking for was they want tents to be at least 3 meters from buildings. They want plastic garbage bags which are covering up windows to be removed, and they want cardboard that is being used to cover up security cameras also removed. That's what the court injunction is requesting. They're not actually requesting for the encampment there to be removed. What are you seeing on the ground tonight?
Tonight, well, 2 hours ago, a march came to join themselves to UQAM right now. And as you can see right behind me, there's a little regroupment. People are, telling stories about the Palestinian since, their formation and what so on. So there's a little bit of action in a good way. Very peaceful, good music, and yep, that's what it is.
And so that gives us a kind of a shot of the crowd behind you. How many people would you say are there tonight? Any
About
estimation?
50 people.
50?
Yeah.
Right. And what's happening with the encampment? Do they still have tents set up, or what are they doing there at UQAM?
Yeah, actually, there's still a tent set up behind the. Actually, I don't know if you can approach probably a little bit, but behind me, right there, you can probably see this is where the encampment is, and from that part here, there's a wall erected with barricade and stuff, and the tent are right behind there. So
Interesting. So, what's happening there right now? Are they giving speeches? You say they're sort of singing some songs and things like that?
yeah, they are singing some songs. Actually, there's a few story being told there. There's a lady right now telling about her own story and experience. And right now, if you can see like that window, for those who probably follow also Rebel News, I'm kind of 5 feet away from where she was attacked the other day in Painton. So that gives
Oh,
you
you're
an
talking
idea of where
about
I'm standing.
Alexa Lavoie, who was attacked and they
Yep,
spray painted her camera, right?
exact.
Hmm.
This is exactly where it was. So I'm just standing 5 feet away from this part. And yeah.
And so, what's been your experience there today? Have they approached you? Have they given you any problems? Have they been welcoming? Are they friendly?
Yeah, well, friendly in a way, yes, because I went here earlier, ask some question to the organizer and other people around. Nobody wanted to speak around much. The only thing that I could have actually is a few answers, but nothing crunchy. It's like, can I ask you a few questions? Who are you working for? Now that they know who I'm working for, or not even knowing what Maverick is in a way,
Hmm.
because we're still young as
Hmm.
a channel. Well, they are not eager to speak much and just show me a few tidbits of the exterior, tell me where I can shoot, and that's pretty much the only information that I get. So,
What
and
about?
also,
Yeah, sorry, go
sorry.
ahead.
Oh, well, they were talking to me about also the fact that, it's an encampment. One lady told to me that since it's an encampment and it's kind of by law not really a good thing, this is also a reason why they don't like media much, because it's giving them bad press. So,
They think that they're getting bad press overall?
well, in a certain way, if you see graffiti around and camera being destroyed in some certain places,
Well,
yeah, and also, blocking people from entering or going at certain place also is a blockade. And yeah, it's against the law for some reason, and it's what giving them the bad press because they
well,
don't want us to know and see.
yeah, they don't. I guess if they're misbehaving, they don't want people to see them misbehaving, which would be the bad press, which would be accurate reporting. Uh, so stop showing us doing bad things. But not everybody there is
No,
doing things like they look like they're pretty peaceful tonight. Um, it doesn't look like there's really any real trouble or anything.
no, they are pretty much enthusiastic and peaceful, and that's the word I'm gonna use here.
Sure.
Enthusiastic is a good one.
Sure. Well, I wish they were a little friendlier with you, and I wish they would speak to you so we could get reaction to things and talk to people. Like this decision today by the World Court, which they're ordering Israel to stop their operation, their military offensive in Rafah. I mean, I'd be very interested to know what they think about that. That must be, in their view, a big win.
Yep. Yeah, I would like to, but knowing that what I've heard earlier and what I've spoke with the lady, she told me about something probably going on around 7 o'clock. Didn't know what it is because she didn't send much. So I was
Yeah.
kind of surprised to see that little march coming in and see
Yeah.
all that crowd here. But at the same time, I mean, she expressly said that she doesn't want any journalists around and stuff like that. So I'm kind of lucky not being looked at in a bad way, or I don't know, being chased off.
Well, it makes it very difficult to do your job and provide, you know, thorough coverage when they're camera shy and a little
Yeah.
bit paranoid, because I know that you would give them fair coverage and even-handed questions. You're not there down there with an agenda.
No, I mean, I'm here just to give, like I said to them earlier, I want to see both sides of the story as a good journalist is. I mean, this is the proper way, I would call that.
Yeah.
And also, well, it's the good old-fashioned journalism, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
do
mean,
have an opinion, sure, but when I come out from my house, I close the door with my opinion back in the door, and I come
yeah.
out with a mask, if you will. Like basically, I'm just a neutral guy, a nobody, and I just do my part. That's
And
all what I do.
we just call it it's presented. Just show the facts, show what's going on, record the event, positive or negative. That's just the way it is. So, in terms of what's actually happening on the ground, what about vandalism and graffiti? You say that there has been some between UQAM and McGill University in Montreal?
Yeah, well, at UQAM, there's a few that you can see around. I'm not gonna go too close, probably, because I don't want people here to get frustrated about my presence.
Right,
But
right.
behind this wall, if you can probably see, yeah, you can see that. It's
Okay.
black and red on the window.
Oh, they spray painted on the windows. I see.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is the vandalism I'm speaking about.
Uh-huh.
So, and
Yeah.
I'm basically where Alexa was standing. I'm right there right now. So, yeah, you see where this is, uh, I'm sad to see that going on. And, in a way, I mean, vandalism is a bad thing, it's
Yeah,
against the law.
yeah.
And
I don't think it helps their cause
no,
doing that. Not at all.
it's not. It's
It's
just that it's just giving them bad press. And I mean, I would like to tell to the world, well, here it's different compared to the other places, but sometimes you get some bad actor.
yeah.
And
Oh,
I
hey,
mean,
that girl's making. She's waving at the camera behind you.
oh, she did.
She did. She was right behind you. She walked no, the other way. I think she's looking the other direction there. She's
Yeah, she
probably in
is.
front of you.
Oh well,
Where'd she
you know
go?
what?
Where'd she go?
She's going
There
in
she
that
is. She's right over
direction.
there. She's right behind you now.
Oh,
She's right behind you. Turn
she
around. She's
right
right
behind.
behind you. She's right there. Go
Oh,
walk over
there
to
he
her.
is.
And she looks friendly. Go talk to her.
You want to say something on the camera?
Ask her about the World Court decision.
How do you think about the world decision today?
Hold that mic. Yeah, there you go.
Good, but well,
It's a good decision.
for doing this Palestine,
Yeah. What
I
do you think about this Palestine encampment?
I don't talk a lot in English, but I think it's good because to show that even if it's difficult in the war in Palestine, it's important to stand up.
Yep. Indeed. Well, actually, it's good to express our freedom of speech.
Yeah.
What about the health? No, sorry. What about the world judgment on this encampment?
Well, I don't know a lot about the judgment on this camp, but I think it's. Where?
No. Oh, all right. So, well, she's not basically on the camera, but it's cool.
Okay.
So,
Sorry.
oh no, it's okay. It's your right to say so. I don't want to be, So, she was minor, so I mean, we'll be careful with that, guys. But
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So she had some good, some good insight on this situation, I think.
Right.
For a 13-year-old, she had some good opinion, I think.
Yeah. Well, there you go. She's getting an education in real time.
Yep. It's a
Yeah.
real-time education and a social experiment.
Young people. Yeah, and the decision today coming down from the World Court an order to Israel to stop its military operation in Rafah. Now, I do have a clip from today's court hearing, or presentation, really is what it was, and the statement. But that, it's that court is kind of viewed as toothless. It doesn't have an enforcement mechanism behind it, even though I'm seeing reports tonight that say the decision is binding. It really, in a way, it isn't, because there's no way for the court to enforce it, and these things have been ignored in the past. So, I don't know that it's going to make any difference at all, ultimately. It's a political win, it's a public relations win for the Palestinian side, but I think that given the way things have been going, Israel is likely to ignore it. The United States is likely to discredit it or treat it as something to discredit. And as a result, it is not binding at all.
Yep. It's kind of sad also because, I mean, in a way, well, it should be binding in a way, don't you think?
I don't know. The thing about the ICC and the ICJ is these are international bodies that some countries like the United States see it as a threat to national sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
It's a larger question, right? This is a globalist court in a way, when you look at it from that perspective. And so should there be an international body that holds countries accountable? Maybe. I think maybe we should have a larger discussion on that issue another night to, dig into the issues surrounding all of that. These courts can, in a way, be political and biased in their own way because they can be viewed as being controlled by the member countries that have the largest stake in the outcomes. So whether they're operating from a completely impartial perspective, I think it maybe deserves further scrutiny.
Yep, it is. And it's another rabbit hole that we can probably one day get around to. Because we know Maverick loves rabbit holes.
Yeah, well, the other thing is it's, well, what was I going to say? The United States today, Speaker Johnson says that Benjamin Netanyahu will be visiting the U.S. and speaking to a joint session of Congress. An exact date has not yet been announced on that, but he's saying that it will be an opportunity to show the U.S. continuing support for Israel. All of this happening, of course, as the World Court made its statement today ordering Israel to stop its offensive in Gaza, in Rafah. It was an extensive statement today as well, and I can play the clip for you in a moment, but I kind of want to keep focused on Dragon there, what's going on at UQAM tonight. So you said there were police there?
Yep. Well, they are
earlier.
gone right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, where I'm standing, there were 2 policemen, and they're gone. But still some police around. I mean, kind of far away, but I feel safe. I'm not intimidate easily. So
sure.
Yeah.
Well, you just try to be respectful and fair, and hopefully that is returned in kind, right? So.
Yeah. Well, I was glad to have that little interview with that youngster. I mean, a 13-year-old with some opinion. That's cool.
Yeah.
We're a crazy good. We are a crazy good country here. I like it.
I did not realize that. I mean, I couldn't tell from, what I saw on video here that she was that young. She looked like she was old enough maybe to be attending classes there, but I guess not. Just
Same
13
here.
years old. It's 13.
Same here. I was like,
But,
okay, she's 13, and I was like, I
but
was almost getting pale there.
yeah, quite bright though.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dragon. You know what? Let me play this little clip from the World Court today, and I don't know if you'll be able to probably hear this. So this is the International Court of Justice. And this, of course, follows a request from South Africa, which is a pending case accusing Israel of violating its obligations under the Genocide Convention. So, reading the new provisional measures in an open session at the court in The Hague, ICJ Justice Nawaf Salam has announced that Israel must abide by its obligations under the Genocide Convention to, in his words, immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah Governorate which may inflict upon the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that would bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. So the court issued that decision by 13 votes in favor and 2 against. The new provisional measures came in response to South Africa's request made on the 10th of May related to its initial accusations in December that Israel is violating its obligations under the Genocide Convention during the war in Gaza, which broke out after Hamas-led attacks on Israel on October 7th that killed more than 1,200 people, Israelis, and left another 250 in custody as hostages of Hamas. Israel's military response as to date, according to Hamas numbers, killed about 30,000 Palestinians, over 30,000 now, according to their statistics, and has caused widespread destruction and a looming famine, according to the court. Now, all of that being said, this is not a determination on whether this has been an act of genocide. That is a pending case. This decision today is simply an order from the World Court to stop the offensive in Rafah. And here's the judge reading that decision.
Two, indicates the following provisional measures. The State of Israel shall, in conformity with its obligations under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, and in view of the worsening conditions of life faced by civilians in the Rafah Governorate, A, by 13 votes to 2, immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah Governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that would bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. In favor, President Salam, Judges Abraham, Yusuf, Shway, Bandari, Iwazawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brand, Gomez Robledo, Cleveland, Oresco, Tlad. Against, Vice President Sebutinde, Judge Ad hoc Barak. By 13 votes to 2, maintain open the Rafah crossing for unhindered provision at scale of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance. In favor, President Salam, Judges Abraham, Yusuf, Shway, Bandari, Iwasawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brand, Gomez Robledo, Cleveland, Oresco, Tlad. Against, Vice President Sebutinde, Judge Ad hoc Barak. C, by 13 votes to 2, take effective measures to ensure the unimpeded access to the Gaza Strip of any commission of inquiry, fact-finding mission, or other investigative body mandated by competent organs of the United Nations to investigate allegations of genocide. In favor, President Salam, Judges Abraham, Yusuf, Shway, Bandari, Iwasawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brand, Gomez Robledo, Cleveland, Oresco, Clady. Against, Vice President Sebutinde, Judge ad hoc Barak. 3. By 13 votes to 2, decides that the State of Israel shall submit a report to the court on all measures taken to give effect to this order within 1 month as from the date of this order. In favor, President Salam, Judges Abraham, Yusuf, Shway, Bandari, Iwasawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brand, Gomez Robledo, Cleveland, Oresco, Clady. Against, Vice President Sebutinde, Judge ad hoc Barak. I shall now call on the registrar to read the operative part of the order in French.
Okay.
Par ces motifs.
So there you have it. That's the bulk of the statement today. What do you think, Dragon? Will this result in an end to hostilities, at least in temporarily or permanently? Where do you think this will go?
Well, permanently, I hope so. And also, I would, permanently, sure. I don't know for sure if it's going to happen. I will hope. But let's hope it's done some ground because, the killing and genocide cannot, continue. And it's kind of sad that the world is going down this way.
I have my doubts. I don't think this is going to stop. And I think that that's another question we should probably explore in greater detail another night is what constitutes genocide? What is the definition? There is a variety of, a range of definitions on it. And
it's true.
I've stated that I think the word genocide is thrown around too loosely these days, the same way the word Nazi is thrown around too loosely. People don't like somebody, they call them a Nazi. It loses its meaning, and I'm not sure if this fits the definition of a genocide. Have there war crimes been committed? I think that's pretty clear, in my opinion, that there have been war crimes on both sides. Whether this rises to the level of a genocide, that will have to be something that's determined in court. As I say, this statement today, this court order, is not a decision on that issue. That's still a pending court case, which was launched by South Africa on behalf of Palestine. So this is an outstanding question. It is not a resolved issue as of tonight. The other thing that, in the law, in the broader sense, here's the thing people aren't really talking about too much. If Israel is found guilty of committing war crimes, or certainly if they're found guilty of committing an act of genocide, in this particular case, which is high profile, they're going to lose, their reputation will be damaged so severely that they will never really ever recover, I wouldn't think, at this point now, in the court of public opinion. This will also give a degree of legitimacy to all the people who have been engaging in anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish rhetoric, cliches, tropes, all of these things that it will in a way signal that it's open season on Israel. And I think a lot of people who have been very opposed to the creation of the State of Israel are just wringing their hands, hoping that Israel is found guilty on this charge of genocide, because in a way it will nullify, cancel the leverage culturally, socially, legally, politically that Israel has had since World War II because of the history surrounding the Holocaust. and
Totally agree.
more than that, this will give, this will put weight behind a lot of people who are, who honestly are Holocaust deniers. So this is going to create a whole new political dynamic globally over the issue of Israel, and it's going to complicate things. It's going to complicate things. Israel has had this shield of political correctness in front of, laid out in front as a layer of protection, right? Since
Yeah.
World War II, because of the Holocaust, they've been able to use that to shield them from these long-standing anti-Semitic attacks, which have been a problem long before World War II. They go back so far in history that it's just an ongoing problem. But this will rekindle a lot of that, I think, if they are found guilty of genocide. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, actually, I totally agree. It's kind of the good guys now becoming the bad guys, and I don't like to use those words, but it's like the old Nazis now, the good guy, and the Jewish are becoming the new Nazi in that world that you're talking about, kind of thing. It's the way I see it. I mean, it's probably not the right way to put it, but in the court of public justice, that's the way it's gonna look like, I think, in a way, and it's sad.
Yeah, it's a public relations war, an information war as much as anything else. That's what I keep saying. And I said from the beginning, Israel should not go in there heavy like they did. They shouldn't have done this, because even if they are successful militarily, they're going to lose on the public relations front, on the information warfare front. This is not good. And and I'll say this too. I said that Hamas uses children. Hamas uses civilians as human shields. That's a fact. We've seen that, regularly. But even though they use people as human shields, that does not give any government or military license to cut through those civilians or kill the civilians in order to get to Hamas. And this is largely what we've been seeing happen. Right now, you've got sometimes collateral damage because they're using civilians as human shields. But this becomes very, very complicated. And at what point does it become? Is there any justification for collateral damage where civilians are being used as human shields, or children? When does a civilian become a combatant? If they refuse to leave and willingly allow themselves to be used as a human shield. These are complex questions, and I just think it was the stupidest, dumbest thing that Israel could have done was to do what they did, to go in there and commit these acts of violence and to kill, initiate an operation that resulted in all these civilian deaths. And but at the same time, I don't put a lot of stock in the numbers that we're getting from Hamas. I don't think we're getting accurate casualty figures. And I think every death pretty much is being counted as civilian. But what the accurate numbers are, I don't know. It'll take a long time before we actually know what the true numbers are.
Yeah,
Over to you.
there's probably number manipulation around the context, and to make it look bad, or it's a PR war, like you said.
Yeah, and civilians caught in the middle of all of this, right? And it's terrible. Man, I don't know.
Well, first casualty of war is truth, right? And the second one is actually a citizen. As bad as it looks.
We need to also note here that the ICC, the International Criminal Court, has also issued arrest warrants for the leaders of Hamas, because they too are guilty of, in my view, war crimes because of what happened on October 7th. And yet, while all that's going on, I'm seeing these really gross, I would say gross, videos online where there is just complete denial by Hamas using social media influencers to say that they didn't do anything wrong on October 7th. Like literally saying that they didn't kill any children, they didn't kill any babies, they didn't kill any civilians, that just complete denial that they did anything wrong. I've been watching many videos like this, that there was no sexual assault, no hostages were sexually assaulted, and it's just simply a plain lie, because we've seen the videos shot by Hamas that were live streamed, captured, and are still online. There was one just this week where the attackers were talking about assaulting some of the young female Palestinian hostages. So,
Indeed.
and yet people are watching these propaganda videos in talk show format and just various formats online, and they're buying this hook, line, and sinker. There's bad stuff going on both sides, as far as I'm concerned, and
it's not all black
right
and
here,
white.
okay? Odious Patton says no evidence, Rick. Yes, there is. There is a ton of evidence on both sides to show that both sides have been engaged in really, really bad things, atrocities. You don't believe your own eyes, I guess. This is not Israeli video that I'm talking about. This is footage from Hamas itself, because they showed it, and they show it because they're proud of it. And it's gross. It's disgusting. And I won't show it on here because it's so violent.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, it's also against the Geneva Convention.
Okay, Odious Patton, you're a liar, or you're a fool, or just a straight up freaking idiot. You can go find this stuff on Twitter just type it in, man. You can find it in 60 seconds. It's all out there. It takes no time at all to go find it. And I'm not going to show it, Troy, because it's gross, disgusting, and extremely violent. And I will not show it.
You know, guys, I will tell you this. I look at every aisles of the spectrum, if you will. I look at mainstream media stuff. I look at every, independent, all of them. And I'm trying to put myself in the middle of it, You can see inflated numbers. You can see stuff like that. Don't believe everything you see. You got to be in the middle.
And you know what? Fat, the day that I saw that report about the beheaded babies, the first thing I said was, that looks like propaganda to me. And I'm not buying that, all the babies were beheaded. I've not seen concrete evidence of that, but I've not seen all the videos. But I'm telling you that I have seen people being killed, and I've seen children being killed, and I've seen lots of evidence of war crimes being committed on October 7th. And I think there are war crimes being committed on the other side too. So that's just the way it is. You can pick a side if you want, and deny it and deny, but truth is truth, and that's what we're here to present to people. And I don't like people who lie.
Yeah. And, me being here, being repressed by some people, by umbrella pushers or whatever you want. Mm-hmm. I mean, in a way, it proves to me that all people are not black and white. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You can be legally black or white and probably just, engage in bad stuff. And this is what you don't want to show yourself for. This is why they have masks. This is why they act the way they are acting for. And, in a way, it's okay that you got your own freedom of expression, but you cannot suppress somebody's expression freedom for the same reason.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, it's an attack to myself in a way, you know, or an attack to anyone else in the Maverick group because you're unable to see what it is from my perspective. So it's a kind of attack for everyone, you know.
Yep. Yeah, man. Like, it's just terrible stuff. I don't know, man. The other thing that's really bothered me over the last, well, since October 7th is, you know, the videos that Hamas is producing right now is they are glorifying violence and glorifying war, glorifying their military operations. They're showing people that they're shooting, Israeli soldiers largely, and they're like heavily produced videos with music, and it looks like some sort of an action film by the time they're done. And I put, you know, graphics of like targets and things over the soldiers, and then they show them being shot and killed or blown up. But it's not just raw footage. Even though I've heard some online influencers like Richard Medhurst sit there and say, this is raw footage, and this is just raw. No, it's not raw footage. It's produced video. And the reason they produce it is because if you just watch the raw footage, it's visceral. It's just flat, and it's just an act of violence. But you put action music behind it, you add the graphics, you speed it up, you zoom, you do all these different effects, and suddenly it looks like an action movie. So it sanitizes it for people, and it allows them to sell the war to people, and that's why they do it. And it's disgusting. That's not news. That is propaganda.
It is.
That's why, and I don't show that stuff here in that context at all, because it's not journalism.
And yeah, this is what it is, Rick. Well, this is 2024 nowadays.
Yeah. You know, you want to show stuff like that, as far as I'm concerned, as a journalist, you want to show war footage, you want to show it in the proper context, as close to reality as you possibly can, so that it's not being so the perspective, the context is not being skewed, so people get it the way that it happened, not with an interpretation, and certainly not with production added to it to make it seem exciting or to glorify it in any way. It's a glorification of violence and of war and of killing another human being or human beings, and it's wrong.
Yep. It's sad that we live in that type of era today.
It's a new layer and a new layer of coverage. It's something new that people are dealing with now for the first time. We've never dealt with warfare and the coverage of warfare in the way that we're dealing with it now. Back in the Vietnam era, during Vietnam, that was the first war that really came into people's living rooms through television. And that footage that came in through the nightly news was edited somewhat, but it was generally provided to people in raw, very, very lightly edited raw format. But that is what generated anti-war protests and brought the reality of war to people so that they could fully understand how horrific it is. And that's why support for the war in Vietnam wore off very quickly, and you had peace rallies and people in the streets protesting like this, only actually protesting for peace and an end to the war at that time. And the United States and other governments around the world learned a lesson from that, and that lesson was they need to manage the information more carefully. We're seeing the result of that now through the kind of videos that are being produced, the information warfare, the way it's being distributed now, and the way that it's all being handled. It's being done in a way to glorify it over here or make the other side, they produce it so that the other side looks bad over there. It's propaganda. But that's propaganda. That's not raw footage. And it's also very powerful now because during the Vietnam era, after that, you got more censorship, right? And you got this stuff was not just thrown out there for people to see. Now on social media, there's far less censorship. This stuff is just being thrown out there for people to see, which on the one hand, I think if it's raw, that's good. Show people reality. On the other hand, if it's being produced so that it's designed to get people to support one position or another, and it's not just being presented in a neutral fashion, just as it is, then that's propaganda. And that can be, I think, bad.
Yeah, I think we kind of see the new journalism type. I would call that probably the extreme extravaganza propagandist journalism. What a new good title for it.
Well, it is. It's
sensationalized. It's sensational.
That's right. They sensationalize it. That's exactly the right word. Yes. Thank you. That's what they're doing, and I've always been very careful about all kinds of stories that I've covered through the years to not sensationalize coverage of news events, especially things involving violence. It's
not too hard to go sensationalize on a story, just one way to do it. I could go and say, look, they are doing this and blah 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 and whatever. You just say anything that passed through your mind, and this is how you sensationalize the thing, which I'm not doing.
Well, sir, I think what we'll do, Dragon, is wrap this portion of the coverage up tonight. I thank you so much for your time tonight.
My pleasure,
work,
sir.
Again, as usual, and I'll give you a call tomorrow. We'll chat a little bit, and folks, as news coverage is warranted, Dragon will be there on the scene. And Dragon, how do people find you and your channel?
The One Rising Dragon on YouTube, also on X. It's the same name. Dragon on Facebook, which is Dragon as a last name, basically because, Facebook and names, they are not doing it right. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoy, and I will wish you all a good night.
And thank you, sir. And I will be back, folks, right after this.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay. So, moving on. RFK Jr. was in Washington today at the Libertarian convention there, and he stepped up his attacks on Donald Trump. Both Kennedy and Trump are there to speak. And he didn't directly criticize Trump today. He really kind of went after Biden in a more aggressive way. But I'll tell you, from everything I've seen, it is it's RFK is, I think, pulling from the Trump side more than the Democrat side, Biden side. That's what I'm seeing. Even though some polls suggest it's the other way around, I think that the larger threat of RFK Jr. is to the Trump team. But they're going after both of these guys. They're down there at this convention this weekend because they're going after the Libertarian vote. And if RFK Jr. gets the endorsement of the Libertarian Party, as I understand it, it can really help his campaign because it can put him, get him more ballot access is really what it comes down to. So anyway, let's go to his speech. And we'll just run a little bit of that for you tonight. RFK Jr. at the Libertarian Convention in Washington, D.C. Here we go.
Due process with no scientific citation, with no public hearings, no notice and comment rulemaking, no environmental impact statements, all of the process of democracy that I've been suing companies and governments for 40 years because they forgot to do one of those things. And all of our constitutional rights were plowed under. They closed all the churches, but they kept open the Walmarts and the liquor stores. And
talking about the pandemic here.
The Fifth Amendment says that no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property unless convicted of a crime. Yet President Trump shut down 3.3 million businesses. President Trump said that he was going to run America like a business. And he came in and he gave the keys to all of our businesses to a 50-year bureaucrat who'd never been elected to anything and had no accountability. They closed down. He closed down 3.3 million businesses with no due process, no just compensation, in violation of the Fifth Amendment. With the lockdowns, the mask mandates, the travel restrictions, President Trump presided over the greatest restriction on individual liberties this country has ever known. He didn't stand up for the Constitution when it really mattered. Next, President Trump's beloved Operation Warp Speed shut down jury trials for any corporation that was involved in COVID countermeasures. Here's what the Seventh Amendment says. No American shall be denied the right of a trial before a jury of his peers in cases or controversies exceeding $25. There is no pandemic exception. And by the way, the framers knew all about pandemics. There were two pandemics during the Revolutionary War, one that decimated the armies of Virginia, the other that destroyed for a long time the army of New England at the very time when Benedict Arnold's army had conquered Montreal. So they had gone into the inner city, taken away from the British, and they owned it, but they had to withdraw because they did not have the troop strength to defend it because of the smallpox epidemic. Otherwise, Canada today would be part of the United States. And all the framers knew that. And between the end of the war, the Revolutionary War in 1780, the ratification of the Bill of Rights in 1791, there were pandemics in every city in our country. Boston, Philadelphia, New York, North Carolina, South Carolina, all the major cities had cholera epidemics, yellow fever epidemics, malaria epidemics. It killed tens of thousands of people. Almost all of the framers had family members or friends who died in those pandemics. Yet they did not put a pandemic exemption in the United States Constitution. And the waiver of the Seventh Amendment for corporations that were involved in countermeasures meant that no matter how reckless the corporation behaved, no matter how negligent it was, no matter how toxic or unnecessary the ingredients, no matter how shoddy the testing, no matter how grievous your injury, you could not sue that company. They had a ticket to make anything they want without any kind of accountability. The Trump White House also went after the Fourth Amendment prohibitions against warrantless searches and seizures with this intrusive track and trace surveillance systems that obliterated our rights to privacy in this country. The only amendment that did not come under attack during the COVID pandemic was the Second Amendment. And many Americans believe that the reason for that is because we have a Second Amendment. Incidentally, President Trump also assaulted the First Amendment, or failed to defend press freedom when he continued President Obama's persecution and prosecution of Julian Assange.
Okay, so we're going to pull out of that for the moment. From what I've seen, some issues that were maybe not where he's not going to score as many points, he kind of avoided during his speech, especially trying to score points with libertarians or maybe people who are a little more conservative. But the libertarian group, they're more populist these days. They seem to pull people from the two sides of the political spectrum. I think you get everything from anarchists to conservatives in there, and so the few communists here and some neoliberals over there. It's a mishmash. People call themselves libertarians, but I don't. It's a strange mix of people. Every time I engage with a group of libertarians, I never know what I'm going to get. It's like a box of chocolates. It really is. It really is. Libertarians are supposed to be limited government, yet some of them just seem like a bunch of progressive liberals to me. But, this attempt to woo support from the Libertarian Party, it could be a big game changer for Kennedy. He has, ruled out joining the Libertarian Party, already did that, said no, not going to do it. But if they can form some sort of an alliance here, it could give him, as I say, a lot more ballot access across the country, which is one of the main stumbling blocks that the campaign is facing right now. They're scrambling. They need ballot access in order to be truly competitive. And he does have forward momentum. He's picking up support. He's a contender, I would say, a distant third, but it's a real threat. If nothing more, he can be a kingmaker or a spoiler, depending on your point of view. If the party's delegates vote for Kennedy, and if Kennedy reconsiders his position to join with the party, it could mean that he could possibly get on the ballot in enough states to theoretically net the 270 electoral college votes that he would need to qualify for the presidential debate and maybe even win the presidency. People think that it's almost impossible for him to do it. I'd say he's still a long shot because there's just so much stacked against him, but it's not out of the question. A lot can happen between now and November. What happens here, even just on the support side, things are so tight between Biden and Trump that in a few key battleground states, what happens here this weekend with this Libertarian Party convention, it could actually make the difference between who ends up in the White House. It's that close, according to all the current polling. Nobody's out in front that far. And it depends on which poll you look at, how things shake down. So keep your eye on RFK Jr. Now, tomorrow, Trump gets his turn at the microphone. He'll be at the podium speaking to the Libertarians. And we'll see what he does. He has ramped up his rhetoric against RFK Jr., his campaign team has, in recent days. In fact, I'm not sure where this exactly has come from, but there is a letter circulating at the convention this weekend trying to convince people to not vote or not support RFK Jr. at the Libertarian Convention. Here's a copy of the letter. It says, RFK Jr. is not a libertarian. RFK Jr. is not anti-war. He's promised unconditional support for Israel's war in Gaza and opposes a ceasefire, all while calling Palestinians pampered. RFK Jr. is only anti-war when it's convenient. It says RFK Jr.'s fix for the environment is heavy-handed government regulation. He supports new government spending programs and wants to curb mining, logging, oil drilling, and suburban sprawl, and he even wants to restrict natural gas exports. It says RFK Jr. is not pro-gun. He called the NRA a terror group and made attendees at, what is that, Pork Fest, 2023, disarm and go through metal detectors. No, that's true. He did, but that's because he's afraid of possible violence, maybe being shot. RFK Jr. supports government-driven wealth redistribution. He supports increasing the minimum wage, wants to give unions more power over workers, and wants to add to the debt by issuing government-backed, 3% mortgages? Okay, that would be far below the market rate. So, of course, that would add to the debt because the government would pick up the tab on the rest. RFK Jr. supports censorship. He said climate change deniers should be tried at The Hague, and complained that politicians who denied climate change couldn't be put in jail. Here's the truth, it says. RFK Jr. only pretends to care about libertarian values when he thinks they will help him get on the ballot. RFK Jr. in February 2024. The DNC and RNC are going, this is a quote apparently, the DNC and the RNC are going to come after us, so we're looking at the options, including working with the Libertarian Party or other parties. RFK Jr. in April 2024, quote, we're not going to have problems getting on the ballot ourselves, so we won't be running Libertarian. Yeah. It is interesting to see. I mean, first he's, determined to run as a Democrat, says he has to fix the party, was determined to, try to get the nomination there. And then and I said he seemed to be running for the wrong party anyway. He should probably be running over with the Republicans where he's got the support. But his policies don't always mesh with what's on the Republican side. That's true. So then he's over there, with the party that the family has always been with, the Kennedy family, Democrats. He wanted to run as a Democrat, but the party didn't want him. So they were basically rejecting him. He didn't have a chance, a snowball's chance of getting the nomination within the Democratic Party. And then they were toying with, running with maybe some of these smaller parties, maybe taking a nomination there because he left the Democrats when it became painfully obvious that there was no path to the nomination. They were just going to hand it to Biden no matter what. And he toyed with that and then ultimately declared his independence. Now he's running as an independent. Now he's over here. Like, there has been, honestly, some flip-flopping that is truth. There is truth to that. But that is the nature of politics, too. Politicians, it's a tough gig. It's hard to please everybody. And you need the votes. You need to sometimes tell people just what they want to hear. It's always difficult to know if a politician is being sincere, if they're real. You don't really know until they assume power, and then you watch them in action and see what they actually do instead of just listening to what they say. And he's coming after Trump here tonight, I see, on the vaccine issue, right? And rights. That is viewed by a lot of people as Trump's Achilles heel, the way he handled the vaccine rollout, the way he promoted it. Although I have to say, he always came out and said that he was in favor of choice, even though he kicked the vaccine can, over to the states, right? And the way that the pandemic was handled, whether they locked down, masked up, vaccine mandates, things like that. A lot of that was handled, most of it at the state level, not federally, not by him. So he kind of washed his hands of a lot of that, but he did promote the vaccine so that it saved a lot of lives and so on. Now, that being said, he did come out, it was maybe about a year ago, talking about the bird flu and the possibility of other vaccines being developed, and came out and firmly in this address, he came out against any new mandates. Very interesting. And then I noticed that just within, the last, I think, 24 hours, just yesterday, it was yesterday, Alex Jones posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, a video which makes reference to Trump's statement from about a year ago about all of that, saying that if there is a bird flu pandemic, we will not comply. And what this really is, in my view, is Alex Jones kind of trying to come to Trump's defense just prior to this convention, this Libertarian convention this weekend, and trying to take the wind out of the sails of people who might criticize Trump on the vaccine issue, namely RFK Jr. and his supporters. Just trying to insulate him from some of the negativity that might come out of that convention. Here, I'll play some of the video with Alex Jones and his reference to Trump's stance on mandates.
We will not accept your lockdowns. We will not abide by your mask mandates, and we will not tolerate your vaccine mandates.
President Trump made a really important announcement back in August of last year that I never knew happened. And it's making the rounds again on X. We're about to play it. But it's really, really important because it lets us know his mindset and what he's committing to if he's reelected, which I think is overwhelmingly clear he is going to be reelected. And that's that he will not support mask mandates or vaccine mandates into the future. Now, he never supported forced masks before or vaccine mandates, but he's being very, very clear in this video that the Democrat deep state is planning to try to bring back COVID or another variant or another virus to manipulate and steal the 2024 election. And he said this, again, 10 months ago or 9 months ago, last August. I'd never seen this because even though he's back on X, he doesn't post on X, and most people don't go to Truth Social. Big mistake Trump's been making. But this is really good news that is his policy, and that's where he's going in the future. And it's really important because last August, I had my sources inside the government at TSA and Border Patrol.
Okay, so you can go watch the rest of that on X if you want to. I just wanted to bring you just a short portion of that because, I don't know, when I'm looking at that, I'm seeing another layer to it, and that layer is Alex Jones backing up Trump. So for the moment, anyway, I think that Alex Jones is back in the Trump camp, not so much in the RFK Jr. camp, and definitely not in the Biden camp. I'm not sure why, but there's a history there of support from him toward Trump. So the timing, I think, is important. It's just ahead of this thing this weekend. So RFK Jr. already on the podium. Trump tomorrow. We'll bring you up to date on what happens there. It might not seem like a big deal because it's just the Libertarian convention, but I think it's a very big deal because it is such a tight race, and this could make a difference in key battleground states where there's literally like maybe a 1 or 2% percentage difference between Trump and Biden. And what happens in those states with RFK Jr. could sway things back one way or the other. And more than that, if the Libertarians are able to, and RFK Jr. join forces, and he gets all the ballot access, this whole election is unlike any election we've ever had before. It's so unpredictable. There's so much that can change so quickly that if RFK is just there near the end, the other two guys might self-destruct, and he might end up with the winning the election by happenstance. I don't know. There's no way to know. This is so unusual. Never has there been an election in U.S. history like this election. So don't count any of those three guys out. They're all old, by the way, too. So any one of them could croak at any moment. There's always that. And Biden, I mean, there's talk that he might still be taken out of the race. I don't know. And Trump, something on the legal side might happen, and he could be disqualified in some areas where maybe he can't get on. But I don't know. There's so much in play here. It's I think in that respect, maybe the most complex U.S. presidential election in history as well. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back. As I say, Speaker Mike Johnson says that Benjamin Netanyahu will be traveling to the United States to speak to a joint session of Congress. No date set yet. In addition to that, he went on to say this today. I'll bring this up. And here's Speaker Johnson.
A couple of weeks ago, I had occasion to travel to Ground Zero to commemorate the tragic loss of life on September 11, 2001 on our own shores. In those days, as terrorists tried to melt the steel of the American spirit, you know who was there standing with us? Israel was there. Following the attacks, Israel, that's right. Following those vicious attacks, Israel offered hundreds of urban search and rescue personnel to search for American bodies lost in the rubble and the ash. and the Israeli government provided intelligence to help us track down Osama bin Laden. Israel endured its own surprise, of course, a surprise attack like the one we endured, of course, on October 7th, in an unspeakable horror that killed more Jews on any one day since the Holocaust. Those terrorists continue still to wage war and launch rockets against Israel as they seek to destroy the shared principles of our civilization. The truth is plain for all to see. They are supported by the regime in Iran, and they are platformed by the United Nations. And shamefully, they have even recruited apologists among some officials here in America. Some leaders who have previously been proud to stand with Israel, and even some who have made statements of solidarity following October 7th, have suddenly begun to backpedal on that support. On one day they tell us that we can give no safe harbor to hate, but on the next they demand that Israel must give safe harbor to Hamas. They tell us they support Israel, but they give cover to anti-Semitism. This is no time for equivocation. We have to speak with clarity and conviction and consistency unlike never before.
So that was Speaker Johnson. I don't think there's been an issue this divisive ever. People are really polarized on this. You know, the other thing I noticed about the RFK Jr. speech today at the Libertarian Convention is he made reference to national pride. I was just talking about that last night. For me, I think back to the Reagan era when pride in America was rekindled. I think in Canada too, it helped rekindle national pride in Canada. I think it's a good thing. It's missing now. Everybody, it seems, in one way or another, has lost faith in our countries. And RFK Jr. stands there and says that, you know, we need to bring back hope. I agree with that. I do agree with it. I think Trump offers, in his own way, that American dream again as well. It's a different American dream, I think, than what Kennedy is offering. Maybe the same sort of dream, but a different path. But both those guys, I think, have sort of positive messages that they're trying to push through their campaigns. Biden, I don't know. He just seems to keep fumbling, you know? Fumbling. And I don't, in his entire time in office, there's been no national pride. It's the progressive left. They hate America. They hate the country. Rush Limbaugh used to say that too. They hate the country. I believe it's true. They do. And there's a strong undercurrent of progressivism all through, maybe even an overcurrent these days. I think they're in charge. And it is anti-American from within. It's like a cancer. It's just eating out national pride. Nationalism, that's what Trump is peddling. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's negative nationalism. I suppose every campaign, like I've heard that old phrase, a bright light attracts some bugs. So you're getting that with all of the campaigns. You're always going to attract some negative stuff. But I sure hope that somehow and when I say national pride, I just mean get back to a place of positivity where people are allowed to feel good about themselves and feel good about the country they live in so that we can all work toward positive things and not sit there and keep beating ourselves up. Focus on positivity and get to positive outcomes and do positive things and get growing again and increase prosperity for everyone. Maybe too much to ask for or hope for in today's political environment? Maybe. I sure hope not. I still got to have hope. not Obama kind of hope, because hope itself isn't a plan. We need strong leadership, a real plan. We need somebody in the White House who can deliver on that hope. I think we can get there. I just hope the voters choose wisely. In Britain, they're going to the polls early as well. I don't have anything scripted here. I'm just, I don't even have anything up on the tabs. I'm just, off the top of my head, just something I probably should mention. I'm sure you're all probably aware at this point that a surprise election has been called. I think they're going to the polls there July 4th. Rishi Sunak, conservative. I think he's in trouble. And that's why it's so surprising to see him go to the polls. I think he could have waited another 6 months, but instead they're going to have an election mid-summer. Well, all of this instability around the world, these, hot wars are taking place. The highest profile ones, of course, in the Middle East, Gaza, and in Ukraine. I think he's probably going to lose. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm hearing. The polls are not looking good for him. It looks like Labor will probably come away with a majority over there. The Conservatives, they're in trouble. Why he would do it right now? Maybe it's because he's hoping during the summer people will be in a better mood. Or maybe they've done some polling to determine that maybe the mix of the demographics of the voters who will be home and will actually be there to vote during the summer will favor them. Or it could be, I know that they have some issues over there in Britain that there would be issues of confidence in the House. And if defeated, it could trigger a vote of non-confidence. And if there is a vote of non-confidence, then the sitting government could be forced to call an election, and that in itself would be sort of a negative way to get into the election, and that might hurt him at the polls too. So maybe that's why. No real explanation given by Rishi Sunak, other than during his statement where he announced that there was going to be an election. When he addressed the public, he just said that it's because they've turned the corner on the economy after the pandemic, that his economic plan is working, and there's evidence that everything is set up now for a turnaround in the UK economy. And he's saying that indeed the economy there is outperforming countries, other Western countries, including the United States. That doesn't really entirely hold water for me, because it hasn't progressed far enough for him at this point to really point at the economy and say, see, there's the proof what I'm doing is working. There's more going on than meets the eye with his decision to call this election now. Okay, let's move on here. We're talking about those hot wars in Gaza and, of course, in Ukraine, and big developments on the war in Ukraine tonight as well. Again, a very polarizing issue. Seeing things like this happening, where people are acknowledging that Putin, along with Netanyahu, the leaders of Hamas, the ICC, has also issued this quite some time ago, an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin. Of course, Russia also saying, the ICC, we're not going to recognize that. There's no enforcement mechanism there, because technically Russia is not a signatory to the ICC either. Either is the United States. Both of those superpowers not obliged to honor any decisions by the ICC or the ICJ. This has been posted on X tonight, making reference to, I think, that ICC arrest warrant, and I don't think you'll ever see him arrested. or before a court with the ICC myself. I don't think it'll happen. Should world leaders be held accountable by an international court like that? There's probably a real strong argument to be made in that regard. We should have a larger discussion, maybe get a lawyer on here and with expertise in international law, or some other journalists on to have a deeper discussion on that issue. You know, I think as I listen to what is said, a lot of what is said sort of makes sense, but at the same time, it is an issue of sovereignty, and they're complicated issues when you're dealing with war. I don't see any positive things about war, period, because you're dealing with killing people, right? How do you justify that? When does it become a war crime? Torture, that's a war crime. Anyway, we'll move on here. There was a court case. There's a court case happening in Ontario, all related around the killing of a young Ontario man. A restaurant. What I'm getting at here is this gunman who is accused of killing a young Ontario man and shooting 4 of his family members inside their restaurant in Mississauga back in 2021. Now we're getting information that he was allegedly part of a trio that had pledged allegiance to ISIS. This coming from the Crown Attorney during an opening statement at the murder trial this week. The victim, his name, 25-year-old Naeem Aki or Akil. I'm sorry about the pronunciation. He became a target, according to the Crown, when he realized that the group, which had loyalties and operated a warehouse business in Toronto, planned to go to the Canadian authorities and alert them that this group had ties to ISIS. And so he found out that they weren't just in the business that they said they were in, that they had pledged allegiance to ISIS, terrorist group, and that the money from this business that they were running, which is essentially just a front, was being sent back home to fund terrorism. As a result, according to the evidence presented in court today, or this week, by the Crown, he ended up being targeted, and it resulted in this horrific act of violence at this small, independent, family-run restaurant in Mississauga. It was a little restaurant called Chicken Land. And so this young man, this Akil, he had converted to Islam, didn't tell his parents. They weren't even aware. And then he got caught up in this and ended up being shot. Family members caught in this too. So the gunman, identified as Anand Nath Suleiman Raza, was the another person involved in this. He's accused of being the getaway driver. But the gunman's name, identified in this court case, is Anand Nath. And it just shows that this stuff is closer to home than a lot of people realize. What else do I have for you here tonight? So back to Trump. He spoke in the Bronx the other night, and we ran a lot of that speech, and I guess that has Democrats up there in the New York area kind of worried because he had a huge turnout. I don't think they were expecting that. He was there to reach out to Hispanic and black voters, and it seemed to be effective. Now he's being criticized because he's talking about immigration again, and the progressive left doesn't like it. The Democrats are saying that he's being alarmist. But Republicans, MAGA supporters, the MAGA movement, they're concerned about open borders. They're concerned about immigration, and they are concerned when Trump says that these waves of immigrants are actually part of building an army, as he puts it. Is that kind of rhetoric fair? Is it accurate? Well, you be the judge.
Happily, they come from Africa, they come from Asia, they come from all over the world, they come from the Middle East, Yemen. We're bombing Yemen. Here we go with the bombs again. We're bombing Yemen, and people are coming in from Yemen. Large numbers of people are coming in from China. And if you look at these people, did you see them? They are physically fit. They're 19 to 25. Almost everyone is a male. And they look like fighting age. I think they're building an army. They had 29,000 people over the last. I think they want to get us from within. I think they're building an army. This is not, it's interesting. Did you see them? They all have tents. They all have gas-fired stoves. I mean, this is not like an illegal immigrant. They're building something. They have something in mind. We're going to end all of that stuff. They respected your president.
What do you guys think? Is what he's saying, is that fair? Is it accurate? I'll just look in the chat here. You guys worried about that? What are your thoughts? I'm just looking in here. I don't know, guys. What do you think? "100% fair," says Jefferson said best. Trop 360, 100%. David Doyle says fair. Yeah. Well, as I say, the progressive left, they're trying to turn that into a big negative for Trump, but I don't think that's going to work. I don't think so at all. Quite the opposite, actually. I think people are going to latch onto that. And Jesse LeBlanc says, "Rick, look at Canadian birth stats and population stats." Yeah, I know. The numbers don't lie. Poets Market, he's got a good point. No, he's right. A camouflage from the streets. Oh, there's Dragonback. He says, "It's the world we live in," Rick. Yeah. Isabel says, "Young men, where are the women and children?" Inquiring minds want to know. As I say, this is the most unusual U.S. presidential election in history. Where it's going to go, I don't know. Justin Trudeau today asked to address this issue in the Middle East. I'll tell you this, what we're hearing from Trudeau today is a bit of a change. He's done I wouldn't say a complete pivot, but it's a partial pivot, maybe a 45-degree pivot. More now slanting his tone to favor Palestine. And I'd say this is a response to the World Court order today to have Israel stop its military operation in Rafah. Asked what the solution is, this is what Trudeau said.
Israel says there's no other way of getting rid of Hamas other than this incursion. What is your response to that?
Canada's position has always been that the solution to the extraordinarily difficult challenges in the Middle East are a two-state solution. A peaceful, secure, democratic Israel alongside a peaceful, secure, democratic Palestinian state. That is what Canada has been working on for decades. That continues to be our path forward, along with many other countries. Unfortunately, the Netanyahu government is creating barriers and blockages to ever being able to create or even imagine that two-state solution. That is where we fundamentally disagree with the Netanyahu government, even as we continue to support the rights of the State of Israel and also the aspirations of the Palestinian people. We need an end to the violence. We need humanitarian aid for those impacted in the region, and we need a path forward towards a true two-state solution.
Sounds good. I'm not convinced. You wait and see. Even if they get get Netanyahu to stop the offensive in Rafah, even if there is a ceasefire, even if Palestine is recognized as its own standalone state, you wait and see. It won't be a lasting peace. I'll predict that right now, and I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But I don't think so. Because I've seen media reports saying that these encampments and protests, the pro-Palestinian protests, that they're peace protests. No, I don't think they are. They're pro-Palestinian protests. That's what they are, largely. Some of the people there might think they're protesting for peace, but no, these are not peace protests. They are pro-Palestine protests. Maybe you want to support that, maybe you don't. You're entitled to have your opinion on it, but it's not about peace. It's about picking a side, and in this case, they want their side to win. What's the win? I don't think it's a two-state solution. I don't personally, from everything I've seen over the years and what's going on right now, that we want a two-state solution. We want peace. We want them to stop fighting. I don't think they do.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Yeah, lots of rhetoric back and forth. The thing about Trump is his language is becoming a little more direct, and it's becoming a little bit easier to get a read on him, I think, in terms of how he views foreign policy. And during that address in the South Bronx, he made reference to authoritarian leaders. Specifically mentioned were Vladimir Putin, North Korean Kim Jong-un, and Chinese leader Xi Jinping coming out with strong language against those leaders. Not hearing that kind of rhetoric in that way from RFK Jr. or Biden. I'm going to be watching all of that very closely in the weeks and months ahead because I think it's important. Elaborate more on in the nights ahead. While that's going on, we have Vladimir Putin tonight, and I said there is major development on the Ukraine war front, and that's because Putin has come out and says that he wants a ceasefire in the Ukraine conflict. He says he's ready to halt the war in Ukraine with a negotiated ceasefire that recognizes the current battlefield lines. That coming from 4 different Russian sources, 2 newswire services tonight, both in Russia and here in the West. He says that he's prepared to fight on if Kiev and the West do not respond. So this is an opportunity, maybe, to bring peace with, and I said this a week ago, maybe even longer ago than that. I said now would be a good time to stop. I said, you can rewind and go find those episodes where I said that I believe Vladimir Putin has really acquired the geographical gains that he wants within Ukraine. I don't think he wants to control the whole country. I think he has what he really wants. This would give him sort of a buffer. And there's an opportunity here now. Now would be a good time to stop. You have these peace talks going on. I think it's in Switzerland, where Ukraine has been invited to participate, but Russia isn't there. Now, all that, while that's going on, you have now Putin positioning himself here this weekend with this statement and an extension of an opportunity in this regard. So there was a news conference held in Belarus today, and Putin said that peace talks should restart. He said, let them resume. He says that negotiations should be based on the realities on the ground and on a plan agreed to during a previous attempt to reach a deal, which occurred during the first weeks of the war, not on the basis of what one side wants, he said. And then Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba has stated on social media tonight that the Russian leader was trying to derail a Ukrainian-initiated peace summit in Switzerland, which I mentioned. It's actually coming up next month, by using this to send out phony signals about his alleged readiness to halt the war. So he went on to say Putin currently has no desire to end his aggression against Ukraine. Only the principled and united voice of the global majority can force him to choose peace over war. I don't know. I would say if he's putting the offer out there, see where it goes. Jump on it, man. Save a lot of lives, and there would be more certainty in a negotiated settlement at this point than rolling the dice and risking it all. This has been a gruesome, bloody battle with massive casualties on both sides. Now, I think in total, from both sides included, probably well over 1 million people killed, soldiers and civilians. That's a lot of human blood. So based on their knowledge of conversations in the upper ranks of the Kremlin, there are sources within Russia who say Putin was of the view that gains in the war so far were enough to sell a victory to the Russian people. So, It's an opportunity, again, at this juncture, to move forward in peace. And I think both sides could maybe live with it. I don't know. Zelensky has said over and over again that peace on Putin's terms is a non-starter, and he has vowed to retake lost territory, including Crimea. Russia annexed that in 2014. And Ukraine just seems dug in and determined to take it all back. Is that possible? I don't know. Last night we were talking about the United States being pressured, and just a growing amount of pressure from within the United States. Calls to allow Ukraine to use U.S. weapons to strike targets inside Russia if those targets are shooting missiles or rockets into Ukraine. That could result in more escalation, and the United Kingdom already kind of giving the green light to Ukraine to do that, and Putin making it clear, saying that if that happens, if UK weapons are used to target anything inside Russia proper, the UK targets will then be struck by Russia. That would signal a massive escalation, further destabilizing everything. And right now we're seeing, because of the delay in the aid package from the United States, Russia pushing forward. They've made real gains. Now, if Ukraine does continue fighting, fighting back, then, they have to regain that territory. There's a lot of ground to cover. I don't know. If this opportunity, if something doesn't happen here, I think we're in for a long drawn-out battle. I don't think it's close to being over. Strange things going on, though, tonight. I know that the former president of Ukraine, I think he flew into Belarus today. Some people speculating that something's up. I don't know. I'm not even going to go down that road because it is speculation at this point. We'll wait and try to deal with facts and see if there really is anything to this. Would Lukashenko be reinstated? That's what people are saying. Where does all this go? I'm not going to speculate on it. Let them speculate. I have no idea what it's about. It could be nothing. Don't know. And while that's all going on, media in on the Russian side, looking at what's going on with the war in Ukraine, sorry, not a war, the tension, the rising tension between China and Taiwan. China in the middle of military drills over there around Taiwan. Reports that Xi Jinping sending a message to the West that if the United States doesn't honor the one China policy, the U.S. will pay a dear price. There is increasing volatility there too. And at the United Nations, we're seeing this being reported over on the Russian side, getting some coverage there of this statement from the UN saying that Taiwan is a province of China. That is the way the Chinese view this. Run the clip.
On the issue of China, we are guided by the General Assembly resolution of 1971.
You said the resolution of 1971, and what does that mean in this context?
Well, it means in terms of our standing on Taiwan as a province of China. On the
So again, this puts the United Nations at odds with the U.S. and the government currently in place in Taiwan. Sort of. The United States has always had kind of an ambiguous, unclear position. They say it's a one-China policy, but clearly it's not a one-China policy. And that's why we're seeing things ramp up so much. And they're economic questions here, not just military questions. This is all about the Great Reset, folks. This is what I was talking about last night. So many people think that it's our government just initiating a Great Reset. No, it's not. This is an international Great Reset being forced upon the world by all of the world's leaders. And what you're seeing is this rising tension, this third world war, really, that has split the world in two. And you're seeing, I would say, democratic nations like the United States, the UK, European nations. That's the democratic side versus the more authoritarian side, which is Brazil, Russia, Iran, India, China, South Africa, communist countries, some countries with, I would say, dictators in charge, some of countries like Russia, which are democratic but still have an authoritarian element to them because of the nature of the politics there and because of their alignment with other countries that are definitely authoritarian. So it's a split, East versus West, in that way sort of traditional in the Cold War sense and so on, but no, it's more complex now. And new alliances being formed, and I would say more powerful alliances being formed right now between Russia and Arab countries, Islamic states, Islamic countries, Muslim countries, Russia, China, communism, Islamism, socialism, authoritarianism versus capitalism, free markets, democratic states, countries where we're supposed to be free. Whether we are or not, I don't know. And yet when I look at all of this stuff going on, I see on the side that's supposed to be authoritarian, I see more national pride. I see great elements of capitalism coming into play, especially as the new BRICS nations, or the BRICS alliance is formed. And the BRICS nations, what are they doing? They're forming their own capital. I mean, money capital, right? They're going to make their own currency. And it's all based on a capitalistic economic system. They're engaging in capitalism, essentially, in their own way, but it's still capitalistic. And if you talk to a lot of communists, they're not happy with what's going on, say, over in Russia because it's too capitalist for them. But I see more similarities, honestly, between the countries than differences in many respects. The only thing that always concerns me is freedom. I'm always focused on freedom. I yearn for it. I want it back. Our governments over here have become far too authoritarian. The pandemic revealed that. It just ripped, the mask right off the authoritarians within our own government system here. We need to push back against all that as far as I'm concerned and embrace freedom. And I hope that the policies, the positions, the platforms of these presidential candidates in the United States, I hope the platforms over here on the Canadian side too, as we inch closer to election day on both sides, here in the West, I hope that we can more clearly see who it is that really stands for freedom and who it is that really harbors authoritarianism in their heart and in their soul. It isn't clear. There's too much rhetoric and too much campaigning going on. I'm listening very closely, trying to determine who it is that we can really trust. I just don't know. I do know this. I'll be back tomorrow night. Same news time, same news channel. Maverick News Channel, where we have the anti-virus programs for your minds. I will catch you back here tomorrow, folks. Love you. On the flip side.
The information war is raging.
Oops. Wrong extra. See you tomorrow.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.